Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Influence Gap. Today's conversation is centered on this key question: is it influence or appropriation? What is the difference between celebrating a cultural trend on social media and taking a concept from the original creator without crediting or compensating them? In other words, exploitation. In this episode, we will look at real examples of Black influencers that have had their original ideas taken over by white influencers, with their recognition nowhere to be seen. The Influence Gap asks, is it possible for brands and content creators to honor a trend and its origins whilst participating? There is a fine line between cultural appreciation and appropriation, which is the responsibility of both brands and influencers and audiences too. So join us on this deep dive. So let us start by defining our terms. Influence is the power to inform and shape trends, whereas appropriation happens when cultural expressions are taken and used without properly crediting the original creators or community. So unfortunately, this is something that happens a lot on TikTok, on Instagram, and it can happen with various different things, whether it's beauty trends, so like makeup challenges or dance challenges. And there's a lot of viral dance challenges that happen on TikTok. So if we think about when we were back in lockdown, there was one particular viral dance, Renegade. Renegade was actually created by an American Black teenager, but turned influencer, Jalea Harmon. And her creative work was often credited to non-Black influencers that tried to pass it off as their own. And the most notable culprit of this was Charli D'Amelio. The New York Times wrote a piece on this, and unfortunately, Jalea's experience was not an isolated incident. This happens to many Black creators, not just for dance challenges, but so many different things. So one musician that has a lot of songs that go viral on TikTok and then have dance challenges attached to them is Megan Thee Stallion. And her Savage remix with Beyonce, that was another big one during lockdown. And when her latest single in 2021 came out, I guess her and her team, they expected that same virality. They expected another song with a catchy hook. It'll go on TikTok. Someone will make a dance. Everyone will be doing the dance. And then in turn, they're going to be listening to the song. So when this didn't actually happen, that was a shock, I guess, to Megan and her team. But it was actually nothing to do with her song, whether it was good or bad or if anyone liked it or not. It was actually because Black creators on TikTok, they teamed together for a dance boycott called the Black TikTok Strike, and it even had its own hashtag. So I guess seeing what's happened to Jalea and many other different creators, people got tired. People got tired of creating dances on TikTok, starting big cultural trends just for white influencers with bigger followings, bigger platforms. They just come, take the dance, make it their own. They don't credit where it's originally come from. And then that Black person that made the dance in the first place, they're never mentioned again, never heard of again. And I think this was one too many. So the Black creators on TikTok and the TikTok community, they teamed together and said enough is enough. We need to do something now that needs to be changed now. There is clearly a fine line between appreciation and appropriation. And I think the point of this dance boycott was to show the difference between the two, recognition and credit, versus the removal of context and lack of credit. Another example that I have is during my deep dive, I found a clip of a 2023 episode of Cocktails and Takeaways, which is Madam Joyce's podcast. She had two influencers on the show with her. She had a girl called Stacey and another girl called Lalo. And they both had different experiences that they spoke about on the episode. But one particular encounter that was mentioned on the episode that I really found interesting was when Lalo spoke about how she was at Coachella she met a big white influencer that wasn't named, and it was a very nice, harmless conversation. Like, oh my gosh, I like your makeup. Tell me how you did your eyeliner. So Layla's told her the little tips and techniques of how she does her own eyeliner. And then lo and behold, a couple of days later, did this influencer not go and make her own makeup video with her makeup looking exactly like Layla's? Her eyeliner looked exactly like hers. And there was no mention of this encounter at Coachella. There was no mention or credit that was given to Layla, not even any reference to maybe any of her content, because she also does make content. And yeah, I think with this particular situation, I guess what's sad is because the content and the ideas were stolen from a real life encounter, not necessarily from a video that you can put side by side and do any comparisons, there would be no way of tracing her original work, really. There'll be no way of being able to connect the two. So unfortunately, this white influencer that was just never named has successfully just taken over this girl's work. And unfortunately, Layla's not the first, she's not the last. And even with all these TikTok dances, sometimes it's really, really small Black creators that is so hard to even trace. They never do get traced. And that needs to change. That really does need to change. It's really just simple. I know now on TikTok, at the bottom in the caption, people write DC, dance creator, and then they tag the person. And I really think that should just be done on all videos, all round. So with Jalea and the Renegade dance, if we want to go back, there were attempts to rectify the miscredit. The Jimmy Fallon show originally had Addison Rae, so a big white creator on TikTok. They originally had her come on and perform the dance along with a different dance as well. And she was also teaching Jimmy these dances. But again, there was no mention to Jalea. And then after the Jimmy Fallon show realized the mistake they had made, they tried to correct it by inviting her on the show. And Jalea also got invites to the Ellen show. And I think she also went to an NBA All-Star game too. I think it's nice that she did eventually get her credits, but realistically, she should have never have had to get it the second time. It should have always just been her credit from the jump. And it should always just be from the jump. For Jalea, it's okay, she managed to reclaim her work. But for all those other creators where their work was just never handed back to them, that's just not right. That's just not it. So that's all I have for today's episode. And I just want to leave you with one thought. There really is a fine line between influence and appropriation. So just need to be very mindful of that, even as consumers of content. Thank you for watching. I've really enjoyed breaking this down. Please share this video and subscribe for more episodes. I'm Tafara and this is The Influence Gap. Thank you.